trigger for the Insurrection Act in Minnesota? What are you waiting for?
I don't think there's any reason right now to use it, but if I needed it, I'd use it. It's very powerful.
President Trump is weighing if he should send in the military to stop the chaos in Minneapolis. Violent left-wing anarchists were throwing snowballs, chunks of ice, and fireworks at agents last night outside a federal facility, which has become their nightly hangout. Now, that comes as Dems pour more gasoline on the unrest. Democratic lawmakers Ilhan Omar and Pramila Jayapal hosting an anti-ICE congressional field hearing in St. Paul, dramatically titled, "Kidnapped and Disappeared: Trump's Deadly Assault on Minnesota." And within minutes, it turned into a full-blown identity politics whack-a-mole.
If ICE agents want to point out that the woman who was killed, Renee Good, and her partner, Becca Good, are lesbians, to ICE, I say this state elects lesbians to the state house, the state senate, and to Congress.
As a gay woman, I have not cried yet over Renee Good because I know if I do, I'm not going to stop.
This is pure racism. This looks like modern-day slave patrols.
I think they're trying to recruit for ICE right now. White supremacists.
The one place where we thought we would never experience this is the U.S. states.
It's like How to Make an American Quilt gone sideways. And members of the media are following the Democrats' lead by smearing ICE agents as, of course, white supremacists.
Do you think the Department of Homeland Security is explicitly attempting to recruit extremists with far-right ideologies, white supremacists, Nazis, and the like into the DHS?
Well, we don't know for sure, but it certainly looks like it, Chris.
Recruiting them using Nazi, white supremacist propaganda, hinting to that, and then people see that. People who don't recognize it as Nazi or white supremacists, maybe they just join anyway. But the ones who do recognize it see it as a hint.
Greg, you've been muttering this whole time. Talk to us.
Have spoken like a secret Nazi. If they can call everybody, again, they call everything Nazis. Trump was a Nazi. Charlie Kirk was a Nazi. Israel was reminiscent of Nazi Germany. Border agents were called Nazis because they whipped, apparently, a non-existent Haitian. So the cause itself is arbitrary. They just like saying this stuff. How was the left able to hijack the label of compassionate? Whenever you talk, like, it's always the right who are heartless. It's like they lead with their mind, but the left reads with his heart. But you see the progressive costume of empathy is pure BS. They actually love to fight. They actually love to be vicious in public and incite angry confrontations as long as it's dramatic, as long as it feeds their attention, and as long as it's incredibly stupid. And when you consider that they are rioting over the deportations of violent, vicious criminals. Think about the same people who said, "Get the Jews out of Gaza," are shouting, "Keep the killers here in Minneapolis." These are the same people. So when you got to understand the hypocrisy. These are the same people who demand trigger warnings on TV shows, and you must obey pronouns, and they express outrage over dead naming somebody who's trans. They demand extreme consideration of their feelings, yet they will get in your face and they will call you a Nazi and try to get you to swing at them. There's something wrong there. And here's something that no one's brought up. So why don't we treat the situation the way the mayor and the governor wants it to, which is a conflict between two opposing forces? You know, marchers and counter-marchers, Proud Boys versus Antifa, Hamas supporters versus Jewish students. Why don't you just treat it like that? Then what would you do? You would have the police there in between, maintaining order and distance. That's what you do with marchers and counter-marchers. Is that what you see here? No, it's not there. It makes you kind of think that the leaders, the political leaders, want this volatile, concentrated, confrontational agitators with no police at all. They don't want this thing to improve. They want it to go bad, or they would do what they do with every one of these demonstrations, which is have the police there and orchestrate peace and suppress conflict. No, Waltz and Fry are aiding and abetting this.
Yeah, and Kennedy, their language which I'm still shocked by that they keep using it about ICE agents. And they use phrases like, unlawful conduct, disgusting behavior. They say, all I want to do is help protect people, defend people. And right as you think they're talking about the recidivist sodomists, the recidivist homicidal maniacs, the child rapists, and even more, no. They're talking about protecting them from lawfully enforced federal agents. It is so backwards there, and it's that is fomenting to radicalize these people that we're seeing out there in 20-degree weather that are just waiting for an ICE agent to touch them, just waiting to provoke them.
Yes, and when we looked at some of the hysterical comments from the Congresswoman in the first part of the show, you realize when you're using polemics and descriptors like that, you've lost the argument. Like when you're saying that they're slave patrols and that they're white supremacists, and even Jamie Raskin going on MS Now and saying that ICE is actively maybe recruiting white supremacists. Like, they don't give any proof of that. They don't say they've talked to people who are white supremacists who took the job with ICE because, they want to be part of slave patrols. It becomes such an absurd argument. It has so little meaning that something that is predicated upon so little meaning can never have actual change. And that's why you're seeing Democrats like Ruben Gallego from Arizona, who's, a total lib, saying, stop saying abolish ICE. We made the same mistake with defund the police. And what we're going to do is undermine our own argument and our own cause, and we're just going to get more of what we're opposing. So maybe there's a better way of saying, maybe we should streamline ICE. Maybe we should have ICE be more accountable. And I don't think sending in the National Guard is the best thing to do right now. So in the last 50 years, there's been one president who sent in the National Guard who, did it under the pretext of the Insurrection Act. And that was George H.W. Bush. I was there. I was living in Hollywood during the 1992 riots, and it was scary as crap. It was terrifying to leave your house because you didn't know if any convenience store or grocery store or street corner was going to devolve into a violent, bloody, murderous riot, and people were losing their lives. We're not quite there in Minnesota, but if some of those hysterical people in Congress and in local government get their way, that's what they're pushing toward, and that is incredibly irresponsible. Now, as a fun historical side fact, Ulysses S. Grant actually invoked the Insurrection Act 6 times to send the National Guard to the South during Reconstruction to fight the Klan. But now you have people like Rashida Tlaib saying that ICE is the Klan. So my goodness, how times have changed.
And even in short term, Jesse, because I remember when President Obama sat in El Paso, Texas, praising National and Border Patrol and federal agents, condemning illegal immigrants for taxing the American population and the civic municipal system, our tax dollars and the like. So why, for that party that lionizes him, why can't they remember that he too actually appreciated for just a small second those brave men and women that try to enforce our national laws?
Because they're dealing with Trump, and whatever he does, they have to fight it. The reason they're in Minneapolis is because we caught the Somalis stealing $8 billion. This isn't a revenge tour. We weren't even going into Minneapolis. It just popped up on the radar because they ripped us off. So that's why we went in. And it wasn't just ICE. Treasury went in. Marshals went in. The FBI went in. And they went in to root out the fraud and root out these illegal aliens. And so they get there, and then they're violently repelled by the locals. Now, you're not allowed to do that. The federal government has jurisdiction over immigration law. That's what the Democrats always argue. So they're just executing the laws that Congress passed. And it's unacceptable for the locals to not protest. This isn't a protest. They're harassing them, impeding them, obstructing them, assaulting them. They're looting. They're throwing fire bombs at them. So if this was an FBI agent, they'd never get away with it. If this was an IRS agent, imagine that the TSA was in Minneapolis and they were mad at the TSA for patting people down too much. And there was violent attacks on TSA agents, and they said, you have to get the TSA out of Minneapolis, and then we'll stop beating the hell out of them. That's not what you do. This is not the United States. They're acting like Somalia in Minneapolis, and they're trying to hold this country hostage with violence. And we're not going to play this game. Donald Trump should go in hard. He should go in heavy. By spreading out all of these ICE agents into different cities all at the same time, it's like thin soup. I would bring 5,000 ICE agents into one city at a time, cordon off whole blocks. You know where they live, you know where the neighborhoods are, and you go in heavy with backup. Because right now you have like a couple hundred guys dealing with protesters, dealing with Jose who's running away, and it's too much to handle, and it looks bad. So in order to maintain law and order, you got to triple the amount of boots on the ground, and you have to maybe bring in the guard if it gets gnarly this weekend.
Harold, can I ask if you are you sort of are embarrassed by your former colleagues' behavior when they demonize and align white supremacy with those men and women who have signed up in ICE to enforce laws, the laws that they themselves have legislated, and create this issue as such a polarizing, sort of fantastical hysteria?
You know, I'm embarrassed. It's good to be with everybody. I'm embarrassed, and really for the country. These images, to Jesse's point, and everyone's point around the table, these images are being broadcast everywhere. The fact that we can't manage this in a civil, peaceful, and forceful way is an amazing thing. I try not to get caught up in he said, whatever one of them may have said or what someone might not have said. What I do know is that we need more leadership. We need less histrionics. We need less politics in all of this. And unfortunately, we seem to be getting a lot of that. Jesse, your point about sending in big numbers and being decisive, careful but decisive about trying to get to the bottom of this. I think what's I think bedeviling a lot of this situation right now is that we live in a country that in so many ways has been defined by federalism, meaning the states and locals have lots of rights to enforce the law, enforce local laws and state laws. And when you want to enforce a federal law that the state won't enforce, then you send national forces there. You made the point that perhaps we're in Minneapolis, first off, because of some of the mismanagement of COVID funds, it could border on criminality. This doesn't look like that's what they're doing. If they are doing that, then they're doing a really bad job of doing what you're saying. I don't disagree with you when you say we got to find where the worst of the worst are in our country. And if they're in Minneapolis or wherever the city they might be, you send in the most people to be able to help quell, if not stabilize the problem and root the problem out. I agree with, I am embarrassed when I hear anyone say defund the police or abolish ICE. I think those are extreme, kind of panicked responses when you're not really being thoughtful and not being careful in how you're thinking about a problem. But we need more leadership. And it's very easy for each side. I'm a Democrat from my side to retreat and say that it's all Donald Trump's fault. It's all ICE's fault. It's very easy for those who may support President Trump to say it's all Tim Walz's fault. It's all Fry's fault. It's all the locals' fault. But at some point, someone has to be a leader. And unless we are just content and are going to accept seeing these kind of images, I'm not here to say either side is more wrong than not, but I do know this. If you're in a leadership position, you got to be a leader. And you got to ask people not to be violent. You've got
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.